Celebrating 47 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farmweek, veterinarians in Texas tackle bird flu in a perplexing dairy mystery. Plus, we all know interest rates are higher, but some farmers are catching a break. In Southern Gardening, Eddie says you don't have to be exotic to be colorful. And a Mississippi encore with history, a food desert no more, a follow-up in this week's feature. Farmweek starts right now.
Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Good to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Zach Ashmore is away on assignment. The CDC and the FDA both describe high-path avian influenza, bird flu, as a dangerous threat to wild birds and poultry. More recently, as we've reported, bird flu has moved into dairy cattle and even humans. And that has generated headlines. But a breakthrough in what was happening may have come from domestic cats. Peter Tubbs of our news partner Market to Market has more.
The ongoing spread of high-path avian influenza in dairy cattle has been a puzzle for veterinarians to diagnose. Dr. Barb Peterson of Amarillo, Texas, was featured on Market to Market in 2016. She saw early symptoms of H5N1 in some of the dairy herds she services earlier this year, but she and colleagues in Texas and New Mexico first pursued regular dairy illnesses as the cause of the symptoms.
So I got a call from a vet colleague end of February, and the question was, are you seeing adult cows with pneumonia and or diarrhea? And I said, no, I'm not. Let's talk through what's going on. We make a list of things we're going to try to rule in or rule out. So we worked on that list, and the following week, I have a client that I worked together on with another veterinarian, and we had a lot of cows with mastitis, almost like a very thick, very yellow mastitis that looked like colostrum, right? But these girls were not recently calved. They had been milking for a while. So we went down the mastitis rabbit hole together.
The illness in the herds was still a mystery until a worker noticed another clue.
And he said, hey, I have a number of barn cats and half of them have died. And so then the alarm bells, start going off into your head, because dairy's close to that dairy. I had sampled birds that ended up being positive for H5N1. So still at this time, that wasn't on my radar. It was like, gosh, there's got to be some type of toxicosis, right? Some type of toxin is maybe in the feed or in the water.
Tissue and fluid samples from the dead cats were sent to labs for testing and were negative for rabies. Then a veterinarian at Iowa State ran the samples for H5N1. He
said the cat's brains and their lungs were positive for influenza A on PCR, and so was your milk. And this is not connecting in my head at all. I said, what? Are you sure? What does that mean? There were other folks at the same time reaching the same conclusion that weekend and early the next week. And so that, unfortunately, is the diagnosis of bird flu in cows for the first time in the United States.
Recent weeks have been spent treating and observing sick cows and studying their path back to health.
Short-term prognosis has been good, right? The herds that I care for and have helped to care for, it's been really positive. Cattle are not dying from this. And just like us, when we get the flu, right, your appetite goes down. So she starts to feel better. She starts to eat more normally again. And then after that, her milk production will slowly start to come back. We just need to figure out how it's transmitted, because thankfully there's states and there's places that don't have this right now and would like to keep it that way. But as far as active disease, it runs its course in about 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that, when she feels better, she eats more normally. And then after that, milk production resumes more slowly.
There are no approved antivirals for cattle on the market. So the current treatment for avian flu is fluids, rest, and time. This week, the USDA called for mandatory testing before interstate movement of dairy cattle. Dr. Peterson credits dairies that have been willing to be the test cases as being critical to solving the mystery.
It's finding folks that they're like, yes, I want to know the answer because this helps my neighbors, this helps the industry, this helps me. It's being fortunate to work with people that are willing to let you, quote unquote, work the problem.
Data from infected herds will develop the protocols for treatment and prevention of the disease in the coming months.
In other news, Missouri lawmakers have approved expansion of a low-interest loan program for farmers so popular the application process had to be shut down the same day it opened back in January. But now approval of a new cap on the program up to $1.2 billion, allowing farmers to borrow at 2 to 3 points lower than otherwise. I spoke to Treasurer Vivek Malik, who said much of the inspiration for the program came out of respect for farmers.
Farmers in the state of Missouri are one of the major professions, and it is the biggest occupation in the state. It's a way of not only making sure that they have all the tools available for successful agribusiness, but also an appreciation from the state that we do care about our ag people, and we do care about farmers, and we need to make sure that they have a sustainable business to make sure that everybody in Missouri, state of Missouri, and across the United States has food on their table. And unless we take care of our farmers, everything rolls around it. And we have a primary obligation to our farmers. And with this small bucks loan, they have the capacity to make those investments to make sure that they are profitable and they are producing quality products for our consumers in agriculture.
Missouri's program is called MoBucks. I spoke to Mississippi's Ag Department and was told that at least for now, the Magnolia State does not have a similar low-interest program. And speaking of Mississippi, a follow-up on a recent trade mission. You'll recall from last week, the state sent a trade delegation to India, what is now at 1.4 billion people, the world's most populous country on earth. Speaking during a live media teleconference from India, Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson told me directly that an expanded relationship there will likely benefit Mississippi cotton and blueberry producers in a big way.
In Mississippi, we've had for some time been shipping a good bit of cotton to India, also wood products, and we're delighted to see the reduction in tariff on some poultry products. That gives us hope for the future. We've had some poultry shipments over here in the past, but we're excited about growing that as we look to the future. And I'm also here, Mike, to support our pecan growers. New Mexico and Georgia and California are taking the lead on all of that. And but our pecan growers in Mississippi will benefit from this growing trade in our unique pecan industry. Blueberries, we're shipping Mississippi blueberries here to India right now. We've got one grower in particular that has some Indian connections who's shipping Mississippi blueberries here. So these are at the very early stages, but definitely I see the prospect for continued growth, and I'm excited about that. And I know our farmers back home are as well.
This was Gibson's second trip to India. He said reception of Mississippi's products has grown tremendously. On the lighter side, Carolina jasmine, just one of several native bloomers that grow vigorously in the southeast and will add a splash of spring color to your landscape. Here's Eddie Smith and this week's Southern Gardening.
There are many beautiful native plants that are right at home in our gardens and landscapes. Southern Gardening is in Tupelo, Mississippi at the home of Sarah Young, enjoying her beautiful native plants with spring blooms. Native azaleas, which typically begin to bloom in late March on nearly naked stems, have blooms that can be up to 1.5 inches across. These pink and yellow blooms really pop in the spring landscape. Another popular spring bloomer is blue phlox. Despite the name, the flower colors range from blue to lavender and pink. Blue Star Insomnia is another spring blooming perennial plant characterized by its clusters of pale blue flowers shaped like stars. This low maintenance perennial plant typically blooms in late spring to early summer and is known for its attractive, feathery green foliage. It is also deer resistant and attracts butterflies, making it a popular choice for wildlife-friendly gardens. If you are looking for a spring blooming vine, Carolina jasmine is a beautiful native vine. It is known for its fragrant yellow flowers that bloom in late winter and early spring, adding a pop of color to the landscape. The vine is evergreen and can be trained to climb trellises, arbors, or fences, making it a lovely addition to garden settings. A bright yellow flower that is a favorite of mine belongs to the genus Coreopsis, commonly called tigseed. This flower brightens up roadsides and is the state wildflower of Mississippi.
Ask your local nursery or garden center for these spring blooming Mississippi native plants for your landscape. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, a success story in the Mississippi Delta, a Farm Week encore. In a part of the Delta long considered a food desert, a town that played a prominent role in civil rights history, a grocery store comes to Marks, Mississippi. It was a long-awaited follow-up to our news coverage of a grand opening that put smiles on the faces of everyone involved. And it showcases yet again just how extension matters. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
Here's this week's Farm Week calendar. First, a field day at the Beaumont Horticultural Unit, Thursday, June 6, 8 to noon, 478 Mississippi Highway 15 North. Registration and breakfast begin at 7:30 that morning, and the program covers vegetable variety trials, disease control, organic production, floral design, wine production, small fruits, and sanitation. For more information, email Christine Coker at this address. Next, the always popular Culinary Arts Kids Camp, June 17th through 21st for rising 4th through 6th graders, and June 24th through 28th for rising 7th through 12th graders. This camp's goal is to introduce kids to new and exciting food experiences through hands-on training with a focus on fruits and vegetables. Kids will learn cooking skills, how to read recipes, and better understand food safety. Camp cost is $300 per child, lunch and snacks provided. Registration through 4-H is required, limited spots available. To register, follow the link below, or for more information, contact Dr. Courtney Chris at this address or call 662-325-0852. And that's the Farm Week calendar for this week.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
In this week's market report, livestock and row crops, the big news last week. We start with beef production, a big issue considering the lower herd size. MSU Extension livestock economist Josh Maples tells us what to expect this year.
It is going to be lower. That's another kind of fascinating thing that's changed a little bit on us the last few months. You know, we started out the year talking about how tight beef supplies are going to be, and they're still projected to be lower than a year ago. We've got fewer cattle. We're going to process fewer cattle this year. So I do still expect, and USDA still expects, that we're going to see a lower beef production in 2024. But not quite as low as we previously expected. So USDA has increased their beef production forecast for the year, in large part due to those heavier weights that we talked about. So carcass weights are higher, cattle are sitting in feedlots longer, and they're getting heavier. Now there's a limit to how heavy they can get. You know, you can't do that forever and just drive weights up forever. But USDA has bumped up their beef production forecast based on these larger weights and slaughter totals that we've seen in the last few months.
In this week's Row Report, Zach sat down with MSU Extension row crop economist Will Maples to ask about the latest USDA crop progress report and what planting season looks like so far.
Out of the latest crop progress report here in Mississippi, we're getting the crop in the ground at a pretty good pace. We're already 85% planted on corn, which is ahead of the normal average. We got about 52% of the soybean crop in the ground, which is a good bit above average as well. So, I mean, we've had some rain in the Delta regions, the last few weeks, but producers have still been able to get the crop in the ground at a pretty good rate.
Yeah, we have had a lot of rains this spring, so that hasn't really affected things much?
For the most part, no. So we've just come at timely times, and they've been able to roll with the planters.
Outstanding. How is that looking on the national level?
So nationally, planting's off to a great start as well. For the most part, corn and soybeans are ahead of average. Iowa's pretty much all planted almost, but there is some dry weather still lingering up in Iowa, so some timely rains this past week have helped alleviate the situation, but a little bit more could be helpful.
Yeah, there's that ongoing drought that's been hitting the Midwest particularly hard, and a lot of that likely has to do with the El Nino weather pattern that's been coming through. But if I recall, we've got a La Nina coming soon.
Yes, that's right. So that's forecasted for the upcoming year. So, we are seeing the rains come through. That drought situation is getting alleviated as we go forward, and overall, the expectation is for it to improve as, we get into the time of year when the crop really needs the rain.
Well, let's take this one crop at a time then. How's corn looking right now?
So corn's, most part, getting planted well. The latest USDA numbers has us planting 90 million acres. With how fast we're getting the crop planted, I imagine we put more in the ground than USDA's kind of said. We saw this last year when we had really good planting conditions. We planted about 3 million more acres than the USDA said we would in March. When the farmers can plant corn, they like to plant corn. So I imagine that number's going to jump based off how well planting's been going.
All right, so let's move on to soybeans then. How's that look?
Soybeans planting's going well. We are projected to plant more than we did last year. Here in Mississippi, getting it in earlier is better. So earlier planted soybeans just yield better on average than later planted. So having a good timely planting, getting it in the ground early, should lead to a pretty good crop, given all the weather conditions going forward throughout the year.
That leads to a question of how's the crop look from South America this past year?
Brazil's wrapping up soybean harvest. They had another huge crop, could have been a record average or almost a record soybean crop. That's really what's kind of holding down U.S. prices as well. They're our biggest competitor on the global market. We had higher soybean prices the last few years. China shifted to buying more soybeans out of Brazil because they had large supply and could source it a little bit cheaper.
Let's move on to cotton then. So how's cotton looking in Mississippi right now?
So cotton's usually planted last out of the crop. So we're about 15% of cotton planted in Mississippi so far. Nationally, we're pretty much on average with where cotton should be this time of year.
So what's cotton looking like on a national level?
So cotton plantings are on pace. They're about right on the 5-year average of where they have been. West Texas, is the largest region of cotton planting. They're getting some timely rains for this time of year. So things are looking good currently. They were looking good last year at this time as well, but as we saw, that cotton crop deteriorated throughout the year. So as of right now, though, things are off to a good start.
So based on what you were saying there, it looks like with the way planting has gone this year, we may have some pretty nice big crops coming our way.
If we base it just off how planting's going so far, we're looking good. But as we all know, that crop's got to get up out of the ground, and it's got all summer to grow. So there's still a lot of opportunities ahead for, weather, drought, other issues going forward. But currently, things are pretty good.
And now that special encore about a little grocery store in Marks, Mississippi we promised you a couple of weeks ago. We're proud to say that Mississippi State University Extension was involved in helping to make Jeffcoat's Family Market possible. Here from producer Brian Utley is another example of how Extension matters.
If you wanted groceries, if you wanted any type of produce or anything, you had to go out of town to get it. Quitman County has the highest food insecurity rate in the state.
Basically, because we were a food desert, for almost 4 years, there was no grocery store in the entire county. That's a long time.
I grew up here in Quitman County. It's my home, and we have a couple of dollar stores here, but you know, they wasn't a meat market, a produce market there.
There's a lot of people in this county that are over 65, and they were having to pay people to drive them to the grocery store to and from.
It happened to me one weekend. I needed a lettuce to make a salad, and I thought about I got to go to Batesville just to get a lettuce, so I just did it without the salad that weekend.
Nobody can, you know, make daily trips to the grocery store when it's 20 miles away. Right now, oh, I forgot I don't have this for supper. Let me run to the grocery store, you know, a mile away is so beneficial.
I love seeing ribbon cutting. It's very exciting. The Extension Service, we may not create a job ourselves. I certainly did not open a grocery store, but we were a part of the puzzle.
With Dr. Rachel Carter, who's part of the Extension program at Mississippi State University, I reached out to her because I went on your website and read about how the Extension helped communities. Getting the grocery store open was a high priority for the Board of Supervisors and for the Board of Aldermen with the city. And so she was able to give me statistics that this area could support a grocery store, looking at the data.
Morris is such a small town. When you look at a town at that size, you actually have to look beyond the city limits. You have to look at the whole county, but you also have to look at what we call the trade area, which is where people tend to shop and basically form a community.
We have a demographic of people with high diabetes, heart issues, just a lot of health disparities. And I think that was pointed out in the research that was done through the Extension.
One reason a grocery store in a rural community is such a big deal and such an important deal is that it can help address health issues, because people need to have access to healthy food options and fresh food options in order to make healthy choices. And so that's a huge issue with keeping a small town together, is having a local grocery store.
It was a big thing, and I kind of expected a lot of people. I have a lot of friends just from the Delta that would want to come and, you know, congratulate me, whatever. But I didn't have any idea that there would be like 4 different television stations there. But that was a little bit on the surprising thing. And
I think we got the right man in the grocery store. He has a grocery store in Tunica that he opened and was running, and said he was looking to open another one. He just wasn't exactly sure where. So when the building came up for sale, they really started courting him.
I think we have a great opportunity here. It's the only store in town, the only store in the county for that reason. There have been stores here before that didn't make it, so I have to kind of I have to say to myself, you know, what do I need to do that no one else did? And I mean, I'll tell everybody I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't golf, but I really enjoy what I do, and no one has to make me go to work, so I want to be there every single day.
It took the entire community, and I will tell you that a whole bunch of people never thought it would come to pass, but it is wonderful. I can tell you it's nicer than I've ever seen that grocery store.
Best in town, this the place. This was the best in town.
I really enjoy taking care of customers. You can't get too busy for me. I mean, just say if the store can hold 300 people, bring in 500, I don't care. I've done this all my life, and if I get the people around me, it's going to work. I mentioned to you that it's not me, it's the people that make the difference.
It's providing jobs. I mean, like, he only brought 2 people from Tunica, so everybody else that he's hired are locals. So it's an economic impact, positive economic impact where, that's huge for Marks, Quitman County in general.
It's bringing jobs, opportunities for people to work. Maybe Quitman County is going to come back, move forward, bring other opportunities here in the area. Since that store opened, the traffic have picked up in Quitman County. It's going to be a tax base for the town of Marks to really do improvement.
It brings me to tears to see the progress. With the opening of the grocery store, we got about 40 jobs. It is definitely a ray of hope, a spark of hope to have jobs come into the community.
Once again, a great job by the community leaders in Marks, Mississippi. Well, next week, what's happening with our ag trade balance? In 1960, we exported more than we imported, and that year kicked off 6 decades of uninterrupted trade surpluses. But 5 years ago, after all that time, American ag suffered its first trade deficit. It happened twice more since and could happen again this year. We're more reliant on other countries for our food. What's going on? A slipping trade balance. That's next time on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.